They say every marriage has its secrets, some small enough to slip under the radar, others large enough to crack the very foundations of trust. But what if the secret is discovered in the most unforgiving spotlight of all, a crowded upscale restaurant? And what if, at the exact moment, a wife learns about her husband's betrayal? She's carrying his child, unsure whether to expose him, protect him, or destroy everything in one impulsive move. This story follows the meteoric rise and catastrophic fall of Derek Harrington, a man who had it all until one dinner turned his world into a firestorm of scandal and investigation. Derek Harrington had always exuded a confidence that verged on arrogance. He was the type of man people noticed in a room, tall, well-groomed, with an intense gaze that made you think he saw your secrets before you even decided to trust him. At 37, he was already heading one of the fastest-growing private tech investment firms in the country. Harrington Ventures nestled in the heart of New York City. Many had whispered comparisons. He could be the next Elon Musk, or he's aiming to dethrone Bill Gates in philanthropic efforts. Of course, those comparisons were mostly hot air in the media, but Derek ate them up like candy and fueled his ambition further. He had grown up in a modest home in Syracuse, New York, the son of a middle school teacher and an unemployed mechanic. Derek swore to himself at a young age that he would never again know the taste of poverty and uncertainty. If there was a mountain, he would climb it. If there was a competitor, he would annihilate them, or better yet, buy them out. Ever since his first big deal, a startup buyout that netted him a cool $20 million by the age of 26, Derek became addicted to the thrill of high-stakes ventures. His wife, Catherine Harrington, was the silent strength behind him. Once Catherine Barnes, she had come from an entirely different world, an only child raised in Connecticut by a wealthy yet tight-knit family who adored her. Catherine's father, Alexander Barnes, had a small but respectable real estate firm that catered to elite clients. Catherine had an aura of class that Derek desperately needed. Although he was confident in boardrooms and pitch meetings, he often floundered in high society's intricacies. Catherine taught him how to navigate those elite circles with charm and grace. For the past 6 years, their marriage had been a blend of love-shared ambition and occasional tension, particularly since Derek began pouring all his time into Harrington Ventures. Catherine had repeatedly asked for a child, a family. Derek always said, soon pushing it down his list of priorities. But finally, to Catherine's breathless joy, she became pregnant. Derek, for his part, seemed excited, though many nights he would return home after midnight, exhausted, complaining about client dinners or late-night strategy sessions. Still, Catherine believed in him. She believed in his vision, in his ability to provide not just for her, but for their soon-to-arrive child. Even if love had cooled into routine, she trusted Derek would protect their family. She had no idea her entire life would be thrown upside down by one small choice, deciding to meet an old friend for dinner in the heart of Manhattan. Catherine had not planned to be at the upscale restaurant Aux Merveilles that particular night. She was 8 months pregnant and feeling more fatigued than usual. But her college friend, Melanie Carter, was passing through New York for the first time in years and insisted on seeing her. To Catherine, it felt like an unexpected gift, an escape from waiting at home alone for Derek to walk through the door at some unknown hour. Melanie had chosen Aux Merveilles because she'd read about it in a luxury travel magazine. The interior glimmered with crystal chandeliers, and each table was separated by translucent screens that glowed with soft amber light. The gentle hum of hushed conversations filled the air, occasionally interrupted by the clink of expensive dinnerware. Catherine arrived early, leaning on the hostess stand for a moment to steady herself. A sympathetic staff member immediately guided her to a plush velvet seat and offered a glass of water. She felt a bit out of place in her maternity dress, noting the swirl of elegant women in cocktail dresses and men in tailored suits. But she brushed off the discomfort. She was here to see her friend, not to impress the Manhattan elite. While waiting for Melanie, Catherine decided to freshen up in the restroom. On her way back, something caught her attention through the filmy screen of a private dining area. At first, she had no idea why her gaze lingered there. She could see a man's silhouette, tall and commanding, and across from him sat a slim figure with flowing dark hair. Catherine's heart twitched. The tilt of the man's head, the way he gestured with his hand, that was Derek's mannerism. But it couldn't be. Derek had told her he was in an urgent meeting on the other side of town. Her heart pounding. Catherine took careful steps toward the screen, making sure to stay hidden behind the plush drapery that separated the main dining area from the private alcoves. A waiter passed by, but she quickly turned away, pretending to examine a painting on the wall until he was gone. Then she returned her gaze to the table. Yes. It was Derek. He was dressed in a charcoal suit, the kind he wore for special private events. And he wasn't dining with a business associate. His companion was a woman with an air of cold, dazzling beauty. Catherine didn't recognize her immediately. Maybe she was a client. But then she noticed the way the woman's hand stretched across the table to rest on Derek's fingers, a gesture far too intimate for a business meeting. Catherine's stomach churned. She felt dizzy. She almost rushed forward to confront him, but some primal sense of caution rooted her to the spot. She wasn't prepared for a scene. She didn't know if she was strong enough to face the answers to the burning questions swirling in her mind. So she watched. Derek leaned in, and the woman did the same, her glossy black hair falling forward to frame her face. Catherine could make out the name Sabrina Chen from the conversation. They chuckled softly, and Derek brushed a strand of the woman's hair back behind her ear. Catherine's hands shook, tears threatening to flood her eyes. She pressed herself against the wall. She needed to get out of there, needed to breathe. She turned and hurried away, nearly running into a startled Melanie who was just arriving. Melanie took one look at Catherine's pale face, then glanced curiously at the private alcove. "Are you okay?" she asked, hands gripping Catherine's arms gently. "My goodness, you look like you've seen a ghost." In a strangled voice, Catherine replied, "I'm not feeling well, Mel. Can we go somewhere else?" Melanie, always sensitive, nodded without question. She guided Catherine outside, hailed a taxi, and insisted they go back to Catherine's penthouse so she could rest. Catherine murmured something about not wanting to be alone, about needing to talk. Once in the taxi, she told Melanie everything, that Derek was there with another woman, clearly more than a business associate. Her friend listened, anger flaming in her eyes. "You need to confront him," Melanie said. "He can't get away with this, especially now when you're about to have his child." But Catherine felt paralyzed. Her mind spun with a million scenarios, none of them good. She wanted the safety of denial, to pretend she didn't witness the betrayal. But she also wanted the raw truth. By the time they reached her penthouse, she had made a decision she would wait for Derek to come home. He would have to look her in the eye and explain. Night stretched on with excruciating slowness. Melanie offered to stay, but Catherine insisted she'd manage. She needed to confront her husband alone. So Melanie left with repeated promises that Catherine call her for any reason, day or night. The apartment felt cavernous once Catherine was alone. Her baby kicked inside her as if sensing her mother's distress. Sometime near midnight, Catherine dozed off on the living room couch, still in her maternity dress and heels, phone clutched in her trembling hand. She awoke to the click of the front door. Derek stepped in laptop bag over his shoulder tie, slightly loosened. He paused when he saw her lying on the couch in the dim light. "You're still awake?" he asked, crossing the room to place a kiss on her forehead. His breath smelled faintly of wine. Catherine recoiled, the sting of his betrayal fresh in her mind. She struggled to compose herself, but emotion burst forth. "Where were you?" Derek froze, obviously caught off guard by her accusatory tone. "I told you I had a meeting." "Don't lie," Catherine shouted. "I saw you, Derek. I saw you at Aux Merveilles with some woman named Sabrina Chen. You were touching her hair." She choked on the words, tears forming again. Derek's face went pale, then hardened with defiance. "You were spying on me." "Catherine, what were you doing there? Having dinner with a friend," she shot back. "But that's not the point. Don't try to twist this around. Just tell me the truth." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "She's just a client. Nothing more. The hair thing, it was just a friendly gesture. You know how these international investors can be. They appreciate closeness, personal connections. She's considering a large investment in Harrington Ventures." Catherine stared at him, heart twisting with disbelief. "I'm not a child, Derek. I know what I saw. That was no casual client dinner." He let out a breath, lips pressed together. "Okay. We're close. But it's complicated. Sabrina has connections with major stakeholders in Asia. She expects a certain rapport. If I don't keep her happy, we could lose a multi-million-dollar deal. So you're sleeping with her to make her invest." Catherine's voice trembled with fury and despair. "It's not that simple," Derek said, but he didn't deny it. "This is business, Catherine. And it's not... it's not what you think. Yes, she's flirtatious. Maybe I crossed a line, but it's for the company, for our future." Catherine stood, a surge of anger giving her strength, even in her pregnant state. "Our future, our child's future. This is how you plan to secure it, by betraying me." Derek's eyes flickered with guilt. But then he hardened again. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Harrington Ventures is on the verge of a major breakthrough. A single large investment could catapult us into the realm of industry giants. I can't afford to let moral qualms hold me back." Catherine felt as if the floor were dropping out from beneath her. She recognized Derek's ambition had always been borderline obsessive. But hearing him admit he'd compromised their marriage, the very sanctity of their relationship just for a deal, she had no words. A wave of exhaustion crashed over her, mingled with heartbreak. "Get out," she finally managed, voice weak yet resolute. "Catherine," he started. She turned away. "Sleep in the guest room. I can't even look at you right now." He opened his mouth to argue, then thought better of it. Silent, he retreated to the guest bedroom, leaving Catherine to collapse onto the couch in tears. As she drifted in a half-conscious state of heartbreak, a single question throbbed in her mind. How could he do this to us? Sunlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, stirring Catherine from a fitful sleep. She sat up, her body aching from the night spent on the couch. She half expected Derek to appear with an apology or at least an explanation better than it's for the deal. But the apartment was silent. A check of the guest room revealed he was gone. No note, no text. Only the faint smell of his cologne in the hallway. Catherine felt bitterness coil inside her like a snake. Had he left for work as though nothing had happened? Trying to compose herself, she went about her morning routine, feeding their fluffy grey cat Winston, who circled her legs anxiously, making a cup of tea, gazing out at the city skyline. But none of it soothed her. Her phone buzzed with a message from Melanie. She simply texted, "I'm here for you," followed by a heart emoji. Catherine typed a quick thanks and debated what to do next. Should she confront Derek at his office? Should she call her father? Confide in him? Then as she paced through the living room, the TV caught her attention. A news ticker scrolled across the bottom, and the anchor's solemn voice filled the silence. Ongoing investigation into potential insider trading and financial misconduct at Harrington Ventures. Derek Harrington's office has not yet released a statement, but sources say officials from the SEC are looking into suspicious activity. Catherine fumbled for the remote and turned up the volume. Her heart pounded with alarm. Investigation insider trading. This was the first she'd heard of anything official. The anchor went on. Harrington Ventures soared to prominence in the last few years, drawing comparisons to major tech moguls like Elon Musk and Bill Gates. But now regulators question whether certain investment gains came from illicitly obtained information. Derek Harrington was spotted at a private dinner last night with an unidentified associate, leading to speculation on whether this meeting is connected to the alleged misconduct. In that moment, Catherine felt a strange mixture of shock and vindication. She remembered the hush of Oxmervale, the private table Derek's murmured conversation with Sabrina Chen. Was this the reason for that meeting? She grabbed her phone and scrolled through financial news sites. All of them were erupting with the story. Harrington Ventures under siege. One headline read, "Inside the SEC probe teased another." She found nothing that concretely linked Sabrina Chen to the scandal, only rumors that Derek was meeting with someone who might hold the key to hush money or secret deals. Anxiety clawed at Catherine's stomach. This was beyond a marital betrayal. It might be a legal catastrophe. She needed answers. She dialed Derek's cell, but it went straight to voicemail. Her next thought was to contact his assistant, the ever-efficient Amanda Wu, who always picked up or responded promptly. But even Amanda's phone rang until voicemail kicked in. Fearing the worst, Catherine decided to put aside her heartbreak for a moment and do what she could to protect her family. She reached for her coat and bag, then headed out the door, determined to confront Derek at his office if necessary. The offices of Harrington Ventures occupied the 20th through 22nd floors of a gleaming steel and glass tower in Midtown. When Catherine arrived, the usual bustle in the lobby was replaced by a tense hush. Small clusters of employees whispered, casting anxious glances toward a row of men in dark suits who were busy rifling through documents and laptops. It was clear the investigation was well underway. Catherine stepped off the elevator on the 22nd floor, where Derek's corner office overlooked the city. She braced herself for the sight of more investigators. Instead, she found the reception area swarming with them. She approached a stern-faced man, flipping through files. "Excuse me, I'm Catherine Harrington. I need to see my husband." He regarded her warily. "Do you have an appointment?" She almost laughed at the absurdity. "Appointment, I'm his wife. Is Derek in his office?" The man jerked his head toward a closed door. "He's in a meeting with the SEC officials and his legal team. Best if you wait." Catherine felt her patience slip. "I'm not waiting," she said firmly. Without another glance, she marched to Derek's office door and turned the handle. Locked. She knocked, ignoring the mutterings of the investigators behind her. After an agonizing minute, the door swung open, revealing Derek's lawyer. A slim woman in a sharp navy suit, a phone pressed to her ear. She looked Catherine up and down. "Mrs. Harrington." "We're in the middle of something." Derek's voice cut through. "Let her in." The lawyer stepped aside, and Catherine entered the office. Derek stood at his desk, arms folded, face drawn and tired. Two men in dark suits sat in chairs across from him, notes scattered on the table. They regarded Catherine neutrally before turning back to Derek. "We'll give you a moment," one of the men said, as they gathered up their documents and stepped out. An awkward hush fell. Catherine closed the door behind them. For a heartbeat, she and Derek just stared at each other, the memory of last night's argument hanging between them. His eyes flickered with guilt concern, and something else, maybe relief. "Catherine." He began running a hand over his face. "I was going to call you once this settled." Her anger reignited at his dismissive tone. "Settled, Derek. You're under investigation by the SEC. This isn't a small pothole in the road. The news is everywhere." He sighed. "Look, I can't say much right now. It's an internal matter, and our lawyers say we should cooperate, but keep quiet publicly. There have been rumors of insider trading, but it's a misunderstanding. We're sorting it out." "A misunderstanding," Catherine repeated. "Does this have anything to do with Sabrina Chen and last night's dinner?" Derek flinched at the name. "Why would you think—" "Because the news outlets are already speculating about it." "Derek," she hissed. "If you were with her to discuss some insider deal—" "Stop," he cut in, raising a hand. "I can't talk about her. Not here, not now. Let's just say I have things under control." Catherine couldn't believe what she was hearing. Under control? "Derek, the entire office is crawling with investigators. I can't even reach your assistant." Amanda was told not to talk to anyone without the lawyers present, Derek said tightly. "She's in a conference room with them now. This is standard procedure." "Standard procedure?" Catherine echoed, her voice faint with incredulity. "How far does this go, Derek? Because if you think I'm going to sit at home pregnant while you're possibly facing criminal charges—" "I didn't do anything illegal," he snapped, though sweat beaded at his temple. "Sabrina, it's complicated. She brought me some stock tips about a company we were considering investing in. She claimed she had reliable leads." "You used them?" Catherine pressed her heart, pounding. He swallowed. "Not exactly. I just moved some assets around. I didn't know it would be considered insider information. She told me it was her own research, that it was legit. I never expected the SEC to come knocking." Catherine's mind reeled. So he had used Sabrina's tips, likely crossing a line into illegal territory. She stared at him, struggling to reconcile the charismatic man she fell in love with, the father of her unborn child, with this desperate figure in front of her. Finally she said, "What do you want from me?" "Derek." He looked pained. "I need you to trust me. I'm meeting with Sabrina this afternoon to clarify things. She owes me an explanation. If she fed me illegal tips, it's on her. My lawyers can argue that I was deceived." Catherine's breath caught. "You're meeting her again? After last night?" "It's business," he insisted. "Look, I get how bad this looks. But if you want to protect our family, you'll let me handle this. I promise I'll fix it." Part of Catherine wanted to cling to the hope that he could, but she saw the desperation in his eyes, the guilt and confusion swirling there. His ambition, once so inspiring, had turned into a reckless obsession that might cost him everything. Maybe she should walk away, call her father, pack a bag, and leave. But she couldn't, at least not yet. She carried his child, and some piece of her still loved him. She nodded once. Fine. But I'm not leaving you alone in this. I'm staying in the city. I'll do what I can to help. Derek exhaled relief passing over his face. He reached for her hands, but she stepped back. I'll trust you for now, she said, voice trembling. But remember, Derek, trust isn't infinite. You've already broken it once. That afternoon, Catherine found herself restless, pacing the penthouse. The SEC had allowed Derek to remain at the office, but insisted he provide any requested documents on demand. His phone was undoubtedly monitored, and Sabrina Chen was labeled a person of interest. Catherine tried to focus on calm. She set up a quiet corner to rest, turned on soft classical music, and attempted to soothe the baby within her. Yet every time she shut her eyes, she saw Derek leaning across that table, saw him gently touching Sabrina's hair. How did we get here? She wondered. Have I been so naive? A phone call from an unfamiliar number broke her reverie. She picked up, heart hammering. A woman's voice spoke clipped and professional. Hello, Mrs. Harrington. My name is Caroline Patterson. I'm a journalist at the New York Daily Mirror. We're working on a story about your husband's company. Would you be willing to provide a statement? Catherine's mouth went dry. No comment, she said hastily, ending the call. But within minutes, another call came from yet another journalist. And then another. It seemed the entire press corps had decided to ring her up in search of a sensational quote. She turned off her phone, trembling with anxiety. The day crawled by. When Derek finally returned home, it was well past 8. Catherine opened the door to find him grim-faced, tie, undone hair disheveled. He looked like a man fighting a war on multiple fronts. Any progress? Catherine asked quietly. He nodded. Lawyers say there's no direct evidence yet. Just allegations that we traded on insider info for a few deals. But they'll keep digging. As for Sabrina... He paused, looking away. We spoke. She claims she's just a scapegoat. She said she's taking a flight back to Hong Kong tomorrow, and that the SEC can't touch her there. Catherine's stomach twisted. So she's running. He shrugged. Or, so she says. I tried to get her to talk to my lawyers, but she refused. She's not answering calls anymore. My attorneys are furious. They say if she disappears, it'll make me look even worse, like we're trying to hide something. Catherine eyed him. Are you still sleeping with her? Derek's cheeks burned red. No. Catherine, I messed up. Okay. I let things get too close, but it was never serious. Not on my end. She wanted to believe him, but suspicion dug its claws into her mind. Is that the truth, or just what you need me to believe? He hesitated. I'm not lying to you. Look, I promise you my relationship with Sabrina was purely for business connections. Maybe it crossed lines, but I never intended to leave you. Or... She shook her head, tears threatening again. How noble, she whispered sarcastically. Derek, I can't keep doing this. I can't watch you destroy yourself and our marriage in this pursuit of power. He reached for her, his hand trembling. For the first time she sensed he was truly afraid. Catherine, if we can get past this, I'll change. I'll make it right. Just stand by me, please. Looking into his eyes, she saw remnants of the man she'd married, the one who had once had dreams of giving them a beautiful life. Hesitantly, she placed her hand on his cheek. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. They stayed like that for a moment, broken but together. By the next morning, Catherine felt an urgent need for counsel. She made a phone call to someone she knew and trusted her father, Alexander Barnes. Despite their somewhat strained relationship, he had never fully approved of Derek's rags to riches aggression. Her father was a steady presence in her life. "Dad," she said quietly when he picked up. "Things are bad. Derek's company is under investigation. There's rumors of insider trading." She heard him exhale. "I saw the news. Are you all right?" "I don't know," she confessed. "He might have been unfaithful too." "I feel like everything is spiraling." Her father's voice softened. "Sweetheart, you need to take care of yourself. Think about my grandchild. Stress can't be good for the baby." She stifled a sob. "I know. Dad, what should I do? Should I leave him?" Alexander was silent for a moment. "I can't decide that for you. But listen, Catherine Derek has always been a risk-taker. That's what made him successful. But it can also lead to ruin if he isn't careful. You have to consider if you can trust him to change. And if not..." She closed her eyes. "I understand." He cleared his throat. "If you need a place to stay, come home. Your old room is waiting, or I can set you up in a nearby property. No pressure. But I won't let you face this alone." Tears welled in her eyes, but she felt a measure of warmth. "Thank you, Dad. I'll let you know." After the call ended, Catherine sat by the window, watching the Manhattan skyline shimmer under the morning sun. Memories danced in her mind. Meeting Derek at a charity gala, her father hosted the spark in his eyes as he talked about turning dreams into reality, the sweet way he'd slipped a note into her coat pocket with an invitation for a first date. Where had that man gone? Meanwhile, Derek's day took a dramatic turn. He was set to appear for a voluntary discussion at the SEC offices downtown. His lawyers insisted that showing openness would help. But an hour before he was supposed to leave, a text from an unknown number arrived. "Meet me at the Park Regency Hotel room, T02. Urgent. Sabrina." His heart pounded. Why would Sabrina risk contacting him now, especially if she was supposedly leaving the country? He showed the text to his head lawyer, Edward Langley, who frowned. "That's ill-advised. She's already under suspicion." Derek frowned. "But if she has evidence to exonerate me or some angle we can use, it could save the company." Langley shook his head. "We can't stop you from going, but this is dangerous. If the SEC finds out, they might interpret it as conspiracy. You should consider letting me or one of the associates go with you." But Derek shook his head. "She might not talk if there's a lawyer present. I'll go alone, but I'll record everything." Langley frowned more deeply. "Just be careful. And whatever you do, don't offer her money or anything that can be interpreted as bribery." Derek nodded grimly. He texted Sabrina back. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Then he instructed his driver to head to the Park Regency. Anxiety prickled his skin as he imagined the worst: a sting operation, a setup by the SEC, or even blackmail from Sabrina herself. When he arrived at room 1902, he found the door slightly ajar. He knocked softly, hearing the faint sound of classical music from inside. Sabrina's voice called out, "Come in." He stepped into the suite, scanning the opulent living area. Marble floors, plush sofas, fresh roses on the coffee table. Sabrina stood by a window wearing a sleek black dress. She looked impeccable every inch, the mysterious femme fatale. Her gaze locked on Derek. "Don't be shy," she said with a purr. "We don't have much time." Derek hesitated by the door. "Why did you call me here?" She beckoned him over. As he stepped forward, she gestured for him to sit on the sofa. He remained standing. "I'm not staying long. Talk." Sabrina smiled, though tension radiated off her. "I'm leaving for Hong Kong in a few hours. I just wanted to mend things between us." "I never meant for you to get in trouble." He shook his head, anger flaring. "You handed me illegal tips. That's exactly how I got in trouble." She narrowed her eyes. "Don't pretend you didn't know the risks, Derek. You're a smart man. No one invests millions blindly. You could have done your own diligence, but you were too eager." He opened his mouth to retort, but she continued. "Anyway, let's not argue about the past. I have a proposition. I can provide documentation that proves I misled you, that I told you it was my own research, and you relied on it in good faith. If the SEC sees that you could walk away with little more than a slap on the wrist." Derek's heart skipped. "So you'll confess to lying?" She shrugged, a coy smile on her lips. "I'll say whatever you need me to say, for the right price." He clenched his jaw. "What price?" She sauntered to a small table and picked up a folder. "I have it all here, emails, transcripts. It's quite convincing. I want $5 million. Derek nearly choked. $5 million? Sabrina. That's blackmail. Her lips curled. Call it compensation. I'll be ostracized from my circles. I can't do business with you or your connections again. I'll have to rebuild from scratch. Derek's mind spun. $5 million was no small amount, but his company was worth hundreds of millions. If the investigation destroyed it, he could lose everything. Still, even if paying Sabrina might clear him, it was absolutely illegal to bribe a witness. This could bury him deeper in legal trouble. He took a step back, shaking his head. I can't do that. My lawyers would kill me. She rolled her eyes. Your lawyers, Derek. You won't need them if you're indicted. You'll be lucky to avoid jail. He stared at her, fury boiling. So this was your plan all along? To reel me in, feed me these tips and then blackmail me? Sabrina's eyes flashed. Don't be naive. You pursued me for my connections. We used each other. Now let's finish the transaction. He exhaled, attempting to steady himself. I won't pay you a cent. If you have evidence that can help me, provide it. If not, get out of my way. Her expression hardened. Think carefully, Derek. You have a lot to lose. He turned to the door. I'm done with you. As he left, his heart pounded not just with anger, but with fear. Fear that Sabrina might release evidence that would incriminate him further, or worse, twist the facts to frame him entirely. The upcoming meeting at the SEC loomed large in his mind. Back at the Harrington Ventures office, Derek quickly informed Langley of what had transpired. The lawyer's face turned pale. She asked for money. Derek, if we even hint at paying her, it could be seen as witness tampering. We have to disclose this to the SEC, or they might discover it later and accuse us of hiding it. Derek groaned. You're right. Let's get it over with. The two hurried to the SEC building where they were ushered into a conference room. Catherine, who'd insisted on coming along for moral support, sat quietly in the corner. She offered Derek a small nod of encouragement. Despite everything, she was there for him. The lead investigator, a meticulous woman named Francesca Morales, greeted them with cool politeness. Mr. Harrington, we appreciate your cooperation. We have a few questions. Langley gave a tight smile. We want to go on record that Ms. Sabrina Chen attempted to solicit money in exchange for certain statements. We did not comply. Morales leaned forward, interest piqued. That's quite an allegation. Do you have proof Derek remembered that he had switched on his phone's recording as soon as Sabrina started talking? He glanced at Langley, who nodded. They handed over the audio file. It was risky, but they had no choice. If Sabrina tried to sell a false narrative, at least they had evidence she'd demanded money. Morales listened with headphones, her stern face revealing little reaction. Finally, she removed the headphones. We'll need to verify the authenticity of this recording. For now, it appears Ms. Chen may have engaged in blackmail. She then fixed Derek with a penetrating gaze. But that doesn't absolve you, Mr. Harrington. Regardless of Ms. Chen's motives, if you used insider information knowingly or not, you remain accountable. Derek swallowed. I understand. The interrogation began, and it felt like a slow, agonizing dance. Morales asked about each investment, each conversation with Sabrina, each trade made in the weeks prior. Derek tried to remain calm, giving honest answers, but stopping whenever Langley advised him to. At times, Catherine interjected small clarifications, like how Derek spent nights working on legitimate research, how he had never shown awareness of wrongdoing. Morales took notes meticulously. Finally, after hours, they were dismissed. Langley told them it might take weeks for the SEC to decide whether to press charges, but at least they hadn't been arrested. Catherine managed a small sigh of relief, but Derek's expression was still grim. This is far from over, he muttered. News of the SEC meeting spread quickly through financial circles. Rumors persisted that Sabrina Chen had fled the country. The press speculated wildly. Did the pregnant wife know secret mistress at center of scandal billionaire playboy or savvy businessman? Each headline more lurid than the last. Investors began pulling out. Harrington Ventures' stock, though private, was partially linked to a public affiliate, and its share price dropped precipitously in after-hours trading. Derek scrambled to reassure stakeholders. He wrote emails, made phone calls, pleaded for patience. Some listened, others distanced themselves. The board of directors called an emergency meeting to discuss damage control. Catherine watched the meltdown with growing horror. She wanted to stand by Derek, but each day more revelations emerged about how close he and Sabrina had been. Photos surfaced of them at charity galas, at private dinners, looking more intimate than Derek had admitted. The press ran with the story, painting a picture of a torrid affair. Catherine felt herself roiling with a mix of jealousy, betrayal, and lingering love. One night, Derek returned home, late, throwing his keys on the kitchen counter in frustration. We lost another investor. The board is furious. Catherine, who had been restless all evening, approached him tentatively. You need a strong public statement, she suggested. Something that clarifies everything from the insider trading allegations to your relationship with Sabrina. He slammed his fist on the counter. I can't talk about the investigation publicly, Catherine. The lawyers forbid it. And as for Sabrina, I'd just be fueling the tabloid fire. She tried to maintain composure. So you do nothing? His face twisted with exhaustion. Yes, for now. We do nothing. The lawyers say we need to wait until the SEC finishes their inquiry. Then we can mount a defense. Catherine nodded numbly. She felt shut out. Every day, the tension in the penthouse grew heavier, as if invisible walls were closing in. and Derek seemed to alternate between frantic action and stony silence, leaving Catherine alone in her swirling thoughts. A few days later, Catherine's father showed up unannounced at the penthouse. Derek had gone to the office. She welcomed Alexander in, offering him tea. He studied her face, concern etched in his expression. "You look exhausted," he said. "I can't sleep," Catherine admitted. "I keep replaying everything in my head." Alexander placed a comforting hand on hers. "Come home with me, at least for a while, to clear your head. Give Derek space to sort this out." She hesitated, torn. I don't want to abandon him." Alexander sighed. "You wouldn't be abandoning him, dear. But you're pregnant, stressed, and it's not healthy. You need calm surroundings, not SEC investigators and salacious tabloids." Catherine thought of the baby, the life growing inside her. She felt a pang of guilt. She was so consumed by Derek's crisis, she barely paused to consider her own well-being. After a long moment, she nodded. "You're right. Let me pack a bag. If Derek wants to talk, he knows how to reach me." Within an hour, she was in her father's car, heading toward the tranquility of Connecticut. She left a short note for Derek. "I'm going to Dad's for a few days to rest. I hope you understand." She didn't expect an immediate response, and she got none. Days turned into a week. Catherine settled into a guest suite at her father's estate, where the staff fussed over her, ensuring she had healthy meals and plenty of rest. She felt her body relax bit by bit, though her heart still weighed heavy. She kept an eye on the news. Harrington Ventures seemed to be on the brink. More rumors of a mass investor exodus, talk of a possible resignation by Derek if indicted. Then one afternoon, Catherine received a call from an unexpected source, Amanda Wu, Derek's assistant. Amanda's voice trembled with urgency. "Mrs. Harrington, I'm sorry to bother you, but there's something you should know." Catherine gripped the phone. "What is it?" A man came by the office, Kyle Peterson, one of Derek's old associates. He claimed to have documents that could prove Derek's innocence. But Derek is so busy fighting fires, he barely gave Kyle the time of day. Kyle said he discovered that Sabrina Chen had conspired with another firm to sabotage Harrington Ventures. He said it was personal for her. She wanted to ruin Derek. Something about an old family feud. Catherine's pulse raced. Wait, an old family feud? Sabrina never mentioned anything like that. "I don't have details," Amanda said. "But Kyle swore he has proof. Sabrina manipulated data to make it look like Derek was trading on insider info, when in fact it was all her doing. He tried emailing Derek, but with the SEC monitor it might get lost. I think Derek's ignoring him because it sounds too far-fetched. But Kyle seems genuine." Catherine thought back to Sabrina's chilling composure, her blackmail attempt. Maybe Sabrina had orchestrated the entire fiasco, setting Derek up for a fall, while reaping her own profit. It was a terrifying thought, but it made sense given her abrupt disappearance and hush-money demands. "Amanda, can you put me in touch with Kyle directly?" Catherine asked. "Of course. I'll text you his number." Minutes later, Catherine spoke to Kyle. He explained that Sabrina's father, Wei Chen, once competed with Derek for a major Chinese tech merger. Derek's success had apparently cost Wei Chen a fortune and tarnished his reputation back home. Kyle believed Sabrina sought revenge under the guise of forging a business relationship, planning to entangle Derek in legal trouble. She fed him tips that appeared legitimate, but in reality they were gleaned from corporate espionage or manipulated data. Then she let the SEC discover them. "I have documents showing Sabrina's father orchestrated the entire infiltration," Kyle said. and also a recorded phone call where Sabrina brags about how easy it was to seduce Derek into compliance. Catherine felt anger and relief swirl together. If Kyle's evidence was real, it could vindicate Derek. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" He hesitated. "I only discovered it a few days ago, rummaging through old servers and unsubscribed email accounts. I used to manage some side projects with Derek, but we parted ways after a disagreement. I had no idea Sabrina's infiltration ran this deep. I thought I owed it to Derek to come clean now." "Thank you," Catherine said earnestly. "Please get those documents to Derek's lawyers. And also send a copy to me." Catherine returned to the city the very next day. Her father tried to persuade her otherwise, but she insisted. "If these documents can save Derek, I need to be there," she said. At Harrington Ventures, she found Derek hunched over a conference table, scattered with papers, eyes bloodshot. The board was in an uproar. The SEC investigation was intensifying. Media outlets were calling him the next Bernie Madoff. It was chaos. Catherine entered the room and placed her hand on Derek's shoulder. He flinched at first, then turned to see her. A mixture of surprise and relief flashed across his face. "Catherine, you're back." She nodded. "I have news. I spoke to Kyle Peterson." Derek frowned. "Kyle, I haven't seen him in ages." Quickly, Catherine explained what Kyle had told her. She saw Derek's eyes widen, a spark of hope igniting. "If he really has that evidence, we can prove Sabrina was the mastermind. This changes everything." "It does," Catherine agreed. "We need to move fast, though, before Sabrina disappears for good." Derek called an emergency meeting with Langley and the legal team. Kyle arrived with a briefcase full of documents and digital files. He walked them through each piece of evidence, showing how Sabrina had infiltrated Harrington Ventures, forged research reports, and leaked them to Derek under false pretenses. The final damning piece, a recorded phone call, where Sabrina gleefully admitted Derek is so hungry for power, he won't even question where the data comes from. By the time the SEC is done with him, he'll be ruined. Langley's eyes shone with triumph. "This is exactly what we need. With this, we can build a defense that Derek was the victim of fraud. He'll still face questions about his due diligence, but it's a significant shift in liability." Derek looked stunned, as if someone had handed him a life preserver, just as he was drowning. He turned to Catherine, voice thick. "I don't deserve you. I was so reckless. I should have known better." She placed a hand over his. "Let's just get through this." Armed with the new evidence, Derek's lawyers presented everything to the SEC. The response was immediate and dramatic. Francesca Morales grilled them for hours, verifying the documents, analyzing the authenticity of the recordings, and cross-checking them against Sabrina's earlier claims. 2 days later, the SEC issued a statement. They were redirecting the focus of the investigation toward Sabrina Chen and her associates. Derek remained under scrutiny for negligence, but the criminal angle for insider trading was all but dropped. The media pounced on the story of the scheming mistress, fueling a new wave of scandalous headlines. But for Derek, the worst legal nightmares seemed to recede. He wasn't out of the woods. Entirely civil penalties for failing to perform proper diligence could still be on the table, and Harrington Ventures' reputation was badly tarnished. Investors remained wary, but at least the threat of prison no longer loomed. Throughout the madness, Catherine stayed by Derek's side, though their personal relationship remained strained. She had forgiven him enough to fight for his exoneration, but the wound of his betrayal festered. One evening after a grueling day of damage control, they sat in the living room. Derek poured himself a stiff drink, offered Catherine sparkling water instead. They sipped in silence. "Thank you," he finally said, "for not walking away, for finding Kyle, for everything." She nodded. "I did it for our child, and maybe for the Derek I thought I knew." He winced at that. She continued, "Where do we go from here?" He drained his glass. "I can't pretend this didn't happen. I failed you. I was so blinded by ambition, I forgot the vows we made. And Sabrina." Catherine cut in gently. "Let's not talk about her anymore." She sighed. "I'm not sure what's next for us, but I do know that if we're going to move forward, we need honesty therapy and time." He closed his eyes, a single tear escaping. "I'll do whatever it takes." In the weeks that followed, Derek officially stepped back from the CEO role of Harrington Ventures, appointing a trusted associate to steady the ship while he sorted out the final legal tangles. The board reluctantly agreed, seeing that Derek had become a lightning rod for controversy. Meanwhile, Catherine focused on her impending motherhood. She invited Derek to prenatal appointments, and he came. Their interactions remained cautious, but as they witnessed the ultrasound images and heard the baby's heartbeat, a profound sense of shared responsibility bound them. Then one crisp autumn morning, Catherine went into labor. Derek rushed her to the hospital, eyes wild with worry. Hours later, they welcomed a baby boy, whom they named Andrew Alexander Harrington. Andrew for Derek's late grandfather and Alexander for Catherine's father. Holding their newborn son, Catherine and Derek felt something shift. The swirling chaos of the past months faded, replaced by a fragile hope. They had survived betrayal scandal and near financial ruin, but life had given them this new beginning, a chance to change. Epilogue. Short conclusion. Within the novel. Over the next year, the SEC investigation wrapped up. Derek settled the negligence charge with a hefty fine and strict compliance measures. Harrington Ventures, though, rebounded under new leadership, and Derek devoted himself to philanthropic initiatives while quietly rebuilding trust among colleagues and loved ones. Sabrina Chen never resurfaced in the US, rumored to be hiding out in Hong Kong under her father's protection, though whispers of further legal action haunted her. For Catherine and Derek, the road to healing was long and winding. They attended counseling, learned to communicate more honestly, and above all focused on raising little Andrew in an environment of love and stability. Through tearful confessions and late-night heart-to-hearts, Catherine began to forgive, and Derek sought to become the man she deserved. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, life rarely is. But in the hush of their child's laughter and the quiet strength of renewed commitment, they found the seeds of something real, something worth preserving. And though the headlines had screamed betrayal and scandal, the final pages of their story were yet unwritten, carrying the possibility of redemption and a new kind of happiness. Life can twist and turn in the most unexpected ways. For Derek and Catherine Harrington, what began as a shocking betrayal escalated into a high-stakes legal drama threatening to tear their lives apart. Yet amidst scandal and heartbreak, they discovered a glimmer of resilience and a reminder that even when everything seems lost, hope can emerge from the shadows. In this story, we've witnessed secrets laid bare, ambitions tested, and a love that struggled to survive the storm. Ultimately, it is a testament to the power of truth and the choices we make in the wake of our deepest regrets. If you found yourself enthralled by the twists and turns of Derek and Catherine's journey, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more captivating tales of ambition, betrayal, and redemption. Your support allows us to continue bringing such stories to life, and we can't wait to share the next chapter with you. Michelle Parker never thought her life could shatter so quickly. One day she was the glowing wife of a millionaire, admired for her poise and kindness. The next, she found herself alone, pregnant, and parked in a dimly lit supermarket lot, desperately trying to sleep behind the steering wheel of her old sedan. How did it come to this? Whispers of betrayal and the sting of infidelity pushed her out of the mansion she called home. And yet fate had only begun unveiling its secrets. A mysterious phone call and a clandestine invitation would soon change the course of Michelle's life forever. Michelle Harris grew up in the modest suburbs of St. Louis, Missouri. Her upbringing was comfortable but never luxurious. Her father, Robert Harris, worked as a history teacher at a local high school, while her mother, June, managed a small daycare from their home. From a young age, Michelle learned the value of caring for others. Summers found her elbow-deep in chores at her mother's daycare, playing games with toddlers and soothing, teary-eyed babies. In a household that constantly bustled with children's laughter, she never once imagined herself living a grand, extravagant life. Yet, as Michelle finished her degree in marketing at Washington University in St. Louis, she dreamed of using her talents to climb the corporate ladder. She spent hours in the library, devouring marketing case studies and meticulously crafting plans for small local businesses in her free time. The side gigs paid little, but they earned her a reputation for creativity and diligence. It was during an off-site training session for a startup company that Michelle met Adrian Parker. Adrian, tall, charismatic, and with eyes that seemed to promise adventure, walked into the conference room and stole her breath away. He was there to speak about business, strategy, brand influence, and how to capture investors' attention. At only 34, Adrian was already a millionaire, the CEO of an investment firm called Parker Grant Holdings, known for backing innovative tech projects. Rumor had it he'd once pitched a joint venture to none other than Elon Musk, but the details were hush-hush. By the time he walked off the stage that day, Michelle couldn't get him out of her mind. Their first conversation took place by the snack table, a relatively unassuming place for a budding romance. She was fussing with the coffee machine. He was trying to decide between a chocolate-filled croissant or a plain one. They laughed at their mutual indecision, an inconsequential moment that blossomed into something extraordinary. Within minutes, Michelle felt as if she'd known him her entire life. Adrian was witty, engaging, and genuinely intrigued by her ideas. He jotted down her contact on a notepad and casually said, "I have a feeling we'll meet again," before sliding it into his suit pocket. Adrian called her 3 days later. They arranged a date at a rooftop bar in the central West End. It was there, beneath the glow of string lights and amidst soft jazz music, that Michelle discovered Adrian had an old soul. He loved big band tunes and had a penchant for surprising his companions with thoughtful gifts. That night he gave her a first-edition marketing book by David Ogilvy, a gesture that left her speechless. After hours of conversation, their connection felt palpably real, built on shared passions, insatiable curiosity, and the electricity of new love. Their relationship skyrocketed from that first date. Within 6 months, Adrian proposed on a snowy evening while they visited Chicago for a business trip. He organized a fancy dinner at the Signature Room on the 95th floor, orchestrating an entire ensemble of violinists to serenade them during dessert. The ring he offered her was modest by millionaire standards, but precious in its simple elegance, a solitaire diamond that sparkled with promise. Michelle tearfully accepted her heart, dancing with excitement at the thought of forever. When they married, everything felt like a fairy tale. The wedding took place on the lush grounds of a vineyard near Napa Valley. Michelle wore a flowing ivory gown, while Adrian sported a crisp black tuxedo. They exchanged vows under a floral arch, with the golden California sun dipping behind them, as if nature itself blessed their union. Close friends and family clinked glasses in celebration, and the newlyweds waltzed into a future that seemed nothing short of perfect. Yet lurking beneath the veneer of wealth and romance was a truth neither suspected. Money can mend many problems, but it can also create new ones. Over the next 2 years, Adrian's fortune grew exponentially. Parker Grant Holdings financed a series of lucrative ventures, placing him in the spotlight of major business publications. Their mansion in St. Louis rivaled homes in Beverly Hills, featuring a marble foyer, a crystal chandelier imported from Italy, and an expansive backyard, complete with a lagoon-style pool. Despite the glamour, Michelle remained grounded. She continued her marketing work, shifting from small gigs to philanthropic branding projects, frequently collaborating with charities like the American Cancer Society. She wanted her own achievements separate from Adrian's fortune. She believed in a partnership of equals, even if her bank account was dwarfed by his. The seeds of trouble were sown quietly. Adrian, once doting and attentive, began missing dinners and phone calls. He brushed off Michelle's concerns with hurried excuses: investors in town, urgent meeting, emergency board vote. While his business soared, his personal life with Michelle began to falter. She would wait in their expansive living room, nerves taut, phone in hand, as the clock neared midnight, just hoping for a text or call from her husband. Some nights she'd lie awake, staring at the empty space in their bed, wondering if success had turned Adrian into a man she hardly knew. Pregnancy was not part of the original plan, at least not yet. They'd discussed having children, but wanted a more stable, personal routine first. Fate had a different intention. The day Michelle discovered she was pregnant, her heart fluttered between excitement and fear. She imagined telling Adrian over a romantic dinner, or maybe surprising him with a small box containing baby shoes. But that night, he came home in a foul mood, weighed down by stress and reeking of expensive whiskey. She tried to give him a back rub, sensing his tension, but he only snapped at her. "I need sleep, Michelle," he barked. "I've got a flight to New York at dawn." She swallowed her hurt and slipped into bed without telling him the news. Days passed before she finally told him. Instead of hugging her and dancing around the living room, as she hoped, he wore a conflicted expression. "Are you sure you want to keep it now?" he asked, his voice flat. Michelle felt a chill. She was stunned he'd even question it. In the weeks that followed, Adrian's schedule became more erratic. He left earlier, came home later if he came home at all. Her pregnancy cravings and morning sickness were overshadowed by an unshakable dread. She felt invisible, an afterthought in his life. Whenever she tried to address it, he offered lavish gifts, designer handbags, diamond bracelets, attempting to placate her with tokens of wealth instead of genuine attention. But Michelle wasn't a fool. She knew the signs of a relationship in peril. Whispers of a rumored affair reached her ears through the very social circles she'd once navigated with ease. Women at charity events shot her pitying glances. Men who admired her philanthropic zeal seemed hesitant to speak openly about the rumors, but the look in their eyes said enough. Something was wrong. One friend, Kelly Reyes, a public relations expert Michelle had worked with, pulled her aside after a charity gala for UNICEF. She awkwardly shifted her gaze and said, "Michelle, I hate to be the one to say it, but I've heard chatter that Adrian's been spotted in questionable circumstances. It might be wise to talk to him." Michelle's lips quivered. She thanked Kelly for her concern. Yet that night, she confronted Adrian the moment he stepped into their marble foyer, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the silent house. He shook his head in denial, feigning outrage. "You actually believe gossip over your own husband?" he spat, tossing his blazer onto a couch. She tried to read his eyes to find some trace of regret or heartbreak at her accusation. Instead, she saw only anger and something else. Fear. "You're the one who hasn't been around," Michelle retorted, her voice catching. "How am I supposed to trust you when you're never here?" The fight escalated. Adrian stormed out, leaving Michelle sobbing quietly in the living room. The proof arrived in the cruelest way possible through paparazzi photos plastered on a gossip site. A tipster had snapped pictures of Adrian stepping out of a luxury hotel in New York, arm in arm, with a stunning brunette in a form-fitting black dress. The expression on his face was unmistakably affectionate as he escorted the woman into a waiting limousine. Later, more photos emerged of them dining at a Michelin-starred restaurant, the two of them looking every bit like a glamorous power couple. Michelle discovered these pictures late at night while scrolling through her phone, half hoping to find some sign of Adrian's whereabouts. Instead, her heart shattered. The ache in her chest was almost unbearable. She stared at her reflection in the glossy marble floor of the bathroom, her hands trembling as she tried not to sink into despair. For 2 nights, she kept the revelation to herself. She felt paralyzed, her mind alternating between heartbreak and an irrational hope that this was all some misunderstanding. On the 3rd night, Adrian arrived home, smelling of bourbon and fresh cologne. Michelle confronted him, phone in hand, pictures on the screen. He didn't deny it. Didn't even try. Instead, he stared her down. His face twisted in annoyance. "So what if I'm seeing someone else?" he said, bitterness dripping from his voice. "You've been distant. All you do is talk about the baby." The cruelty in his words felt like a dagger to her soul. "You promised me forever," she croaked, tears welling in her eyes. She could barely stand upright as her entire body quaked. She placed a protective hand over her small baby bump. "Why would you do this now when we're starting a family?" Adrian shrugged as though bored. "I told you I'm not sure I want this child. And you were too consumed with your charity work, your marketing projects, your perfect illusions." He rubbed his temples. "I need something else." Michelle felt the last remnants of her fairy tale crumble at her feet. She had no words. The silence suffocated them both until she tore up the staircase, tears staining her cheeks, and locked herself in a guest bedroom. She packed only a small suitcase with clothes, her laptop, and essential documents. She took one last look at the mansion's corridor, the intricately carved wainscoting, the glistening chandeliers, and walked out. Outside in the driveway, she realized she had nowhere to go. Their entire life was in that home. She had few close friends in St. Louis, and her parents lived in a modest townhouse that hardly had space for another occupant, let alone a pregnant daughter. Pride also kept her from wanting to face them with such heartbreak. The only option left was her car. It was a 2012 Toyota Camry, a gift from her dad when she graduated college. Michelle sat in the driver's seat, scanning her phone contacts, searching for someone. Anyone she could call at midnight. She felt sick physically and emotionally. The baby in her womb deserved so much better than this turmoil. But she couldn't think. She turned the ignition and drove aimlessly through dark roads, tears streaming down her face. Michelle ended up parked in a quiet corner of a 24-hour supermarket lot, the fluorescence of streetlights giving the place a ghostly glow. She tilted her seat back as far as it would go, hugging a soft blanket around her shoulders. Every so often, a security guard's flashlight beam would slice through the darkness, but no one questioned her presence. The hum of cars and the shuffle of late-night shoppers became her lullaby for a night she'd never forget. Morning sickness assaulted her in the early hours. She stumbled out of the car, nausea rolling through her. She barely made it to a nearby patch of grass in time. By dawn, she was exhausted physically and spiritually. She tried calling a few acquaintances, only to reach voicemails. The clock crept toward 8 a.m., and Michelle realized she needed a plan, and fast. She thought of her friend Kelly Reyes, the PR specialist who had warned her. Taking a chance, she dialed Kelly's number. Kelly answered on the third ring, her voice thick with sleep. But when Michelle's tear-strained words spilled out, Kelly became fully alert. "I'm on my way," she said. Within half an hour, Kelly arrived with a to-go mug of chamomile tea and a sympathetic hug. They drove to a nearby diner. Over eggs and toast, Michelle recounted the entire ordeal, Adrian's affair, his callous confession, her departure in the middle of the night, and now her uncertain future. Kelly pressed her hand gently. "Michelle, you can't live in your car. Come stay with me. My apartment isn't huge, but at least it's a safe space." Relief and gratitude flooded Michelle. She agreed. That morning, she packed what few belongings she had in her trunk and followed Kelly's sedan to a modest one-bedroom apartment near Washington Avenue. True to her word, Kelly cleared out a space in the living room, setting up a cozy air mattress and some bedding. For the next few days, Michelle attempted to compose herself. She needed to think through her next move. Should she file for divorce? Try to reconcile? Demand spousal support? The thought of confronting Adrian again made her stomach twist with both anger and a lingering sense of betrayal. Meanwhile, Kelly insisted she speak to a lawyer. "You're pregnant with his child," Kelly reminded her. "You have rights." Michelle booked a consultation with a well-known family law attorney, Lisa Green, who had handled high-profile cases involving wealthy spouses. The law firm had references from one of Michelle's philanthropic colleagues, so she felt at least somewhat secure in the attorney's expertise. Arriving at the downtown office, she was ushered into a minimalist conference room with sweeping views of the Mississippi River. Lisa was all business, her precise words delivering a brutal reality check. "Adrian has considerable assets. If he contests custody or tries to limit child support, we'll have a fight on our hands. But you have strong grounds here, given the infidelity and your unborn child." Michelle nodded, chewing her lip. Money, ironically, was the least of her worries. Her heartbreak overshadowed any financial concerns. She wanted to ensure her baby would have a stable future. Yes, but what she truly yearned for was an end to the nightmares. Each night, she dreamed of Adrian's cruel eyes of the woman in the black dress and the heartache that followed. She awoke each morning, trying to tell herself it was just a nightmare, only to recall it was all too real. After a week spent mourning her marriage, Michelle received an unexpected email. The sender's address was cryptic, email protected. The subject line read, "Urgent meeting request RE. Adrian Parker." Her pulse spiked as she clicked it open. "Dear Ms. Parker, you do not know me, but I possess crucial information about Adrian Parker that could affect your future and the future of your child. I would like to discuss this with you in person. I assure you I have nothing to gain but the truth. If you're willing, please meet me at 7 p.m. tomorrow at the Riverfront Overlook Cafe in Forest Park. A friend. Michelle's skepticism flared. This had to be a trap, or at best a ruse by some tabloid seeking a juicy story. She forwarded the email to Kelly, who shared her caution. You can't just go alone to meet a stranger who claims to have information about Adrian, Kelly warned, brow furrowed with concern. Yet curiosity gnawed at Michelle. What could this person possibly know? Was there more to Adrian's affair, or some hidden aspect of his business dealings that explained his sudden coldness? If it led to answers or even closure, she had to pursue it. At exactly 7 p.m. the following evening, she entered the Riverfront Overlook Cafe, her stomach swirling with nerves. Kelly accompanied her, albeit seated a few tables away, trying to blend in with the evening crowd. The cafe buzzed with chatter from university students, families and couples seeking a scenic view. Michelle's breath caught each time the door opened. Finally, a man in his early 50s, wearing a tweed blazer and carrying a small leather briefcase, stepped in. He scanned the room until his gaze settled on Michelle. He approached her table, removing his hat politely. "Michelle Parker?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, swallowing hard. "My name is Charles Reynolds," he continued. I used to be an accountant for Parker Grant Holdings." Charles sat setting his briefcase on the seat next to him. With a trembling hand, he opened it and pulled out a slim folder. "I came because I discovered discrepancies in Adrian's finances," he said, voice tense. "And I believe these discrepancies are tied to his personal dealings, possibly including the affair." He sighed, steeling himself. "I know it's not my place, but what he's doing is wrong." I couldn't stay silent anymore. Michelle's heart hammered. "What exactly did you find?" Charles explained that he'd come across numerous unauthorized transfers, totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars from Parker Grant Holdings accounts into a private LLC Adrian had created. Initially, Charles thought Adrian might be funneling money into a new project. But the amounts were suspicious, the timing too erratic. Then Charles discovered that some of the funds were used for extravagant personal expenses, luxury jewelry, five-star hotels, and real estate in a woman's name. The same woman Charles suspected who was pictured in those paparazzi photos. Michelle's blood ran cold. "Why are you telling me this?" Charles's expression softened. "I have a wife and kids. I know how it feels to worry about family. If Adrian is using company funds in this manner, it could lead to major legal consequences, fraud, embezzlement, who knows what else. And he's endangering everyone around him, including you and your child. Not to mention if a scandal breaks Parker Grant. Holdings could implode, leaving you and your baby unprotected." She leaned back, speechless. Adrian's betrayal now extended beyond their marital vows. He was risking everything potentially on some reckless gamble with his mistress. "Is there proof?" she managed, her voice shaky. "Plenty." Charles nodded. "I made copies before I resigned. They're in secure storage, but I can share them with you. I just want to ensure you're prepared. I emailed you because, from what I've gathered, Adrian hasn't treated you fairly. The board suspects something is amiss, but Adrian is cunning. He's managed to keep the truth buried." Michelle's mind spun. This was bigger than an affair. It was a ticking time bomb that could destroy the father of her child and everything she'd worked for. She thanked Charles for his courage. He offered her the folder. Inside were partial statements, redacted wire transfers, and the name of the LLCAP Discretionary Ventures. The word discretionary felt like a gut punch, as if everything about her life had become disposable in Adrian's eyes. Before they parted, Charles gave her a burner phone number. "If you decide to act on this, give me a call," he said. Watching him leave, Michelle felt like she'd stepped onto a precipice. She had a choice: expose Adrian's misdeeds and protect herself, or remain silent and hope the situation somehow fixed itself. She glanced at Kelly, who looked at her questioningly from across the cafe. Michelle and Kelly returned to the apartment, sprawled the documents on the dining table, and pored over them until late at night. The next morning, Michelle made an urgent appointment with Lisa Green, her attorney. Lisa's eyes widened as she skimmed the paperwork. "This changes everything," she murmured. "Adrian could face serious legal repercussions. You may have leverage to secure a fair settlement for you and your unborn child, but it also places you in a precarious position if he learns you have these documents." The question loomed: should they confront Adrian or present the information to the board of Parker Grant Holdings? Should they threaten legal action? Lisa advised caution. "We should approach this step by step. Let me discreetly speak with a colleague who handles corporate fraud. In the meantime, keep these documents hidden and stay safe. Adrian is known to have powerful allies." The storm gathered, and Michelle felt it in her bones. She reached out to Adrian's personal secretary, a polite but guarded woman named Jenna Patterson, to request a meeting. Jenna sounded surprised, but eventually fit Michelle in for a lunch the following week at a well-known steakhouse Owl's on First, presumably because Adrian liked to maintain appearances in public. Perhaps he thought it was safer to meet there than behind closed doors. When Michelle arrived, her stomach churned with anxiety. Adrian sat in a private booth checking his phone. He was impeccably dressed, as always, but lines of stress etched his forehead. The moment Michelle slid into the seat opposite him, a tense hush fell over them. "Well," Adrian said, swirling a glass of water, "you wanted to meet." There was no greeting, no concern for how she was. No mention of the child she carried. Michelle inhaled deeply. "I want a divorce, Adrian." He twitched through, whether from shock or annoyance, she couldn't tell. "I should have expected this." His tone was dismissive. "Let's talk settlement. I'll give you a lump sum, you sign NDAs, and we never see each other again." She narrowed her eyes. "It's not that simple. I have proof you're misusing company funds." His face paled. He set down the glass a little too forcefully, water sloshing. "Where did you get that?" His voice was low and threatening. She held his gaze, even though her heart hammered like a drum in her chest. "I'm not going to reveal my source. But if you continue this path, it will destroy everything, including Parker Grant. If a fraud investigation is launched, you could face jail time. Do you have any idea what that would mean for our child?" Adrian's facade cracked, revealing panic. He pressed his lips together, glancing around to make sure no one overheard. "You think you can blackmail me?" he hissed. "Because that's what this is, Michelle." She shook her head. "No. I just want to ensure I'm not left picking up the pieces. I want a fair divorce settlement, child support, and an acknowledgement of wrongdoing. That's all." He leaned back, exhaling. A conflicted flicker crossed his features. "You're pregnant with my child," he said, quieter this time. For a moment he sounded almost remorseful. Then the hardness returned to his eyes. "Fine," he muttered. "Draw up your terms, give them to your lawyer, and we'll discuss. But if you so much as leak those documents, I'll make sure you regret it." Michelle refused to wilt under his threat. "Stop funneling money to that mistress. End it, Adrian, or I swear the board will know by the end of the week." He stared at her for a few seconds, a swirl of anger and dread behind his gaze. Then he rose and threw a few bills on the table for the untouched lunch. "Have a nice day," he said tersely, and walked out. As Michelle drove away, she glanced down at the seatbelt crossing her belly and whispered a silent prayer for her baby. She knew she was gambling with forces much larger than herself, but she had no choice. She had to protect her child's future. Over the next few days, Michelle felt no relief, only a building sense of danger. Adrian hadn't reached out with any official statements or settlements. She feared he might be plotting something more nefarious. Sleepless nights plagued her. Kelly kept reassuring her that Lisa Green's legal team was strong and that Charles Reynolds was still willing to testify if needed. Then a surprising message arrived in Michelle's email. Subject: another friend. Inside, she found an invitation to a second secret meeting at a private lounge in the Chase Park Plaza Hotel. The email claimed this meeting involved interested parties from Parker Grant Holdings who wanted to speak with Michelle discreetly. Her first instinct was to reject it. She'd had enough cloak and dagger encounters. But Lisa urged caution and curiosity. It could be board members who want to handle this matter internally. If they're offering a private meeting, it might lead to a swifter resolution. So a few nights later, Michelle found herself in a luxurious, dimly lit lounge. She recognized a hush-hush ambiance, plush seating, low chatter, and elegantly dressed patrons sipping top-shelf liquor. She wore a simple black dress that comfortably accommodated her small baby bump. Kelly accompanied her for moral support, waiting in the lobby. Michelle was directed to a secluded corner table by a hostess who nodded politely and said, "They're expecting you." She saw two people seated there. A man in his early 60s with sharp features and steel-gray hair, and a woman in her 40s, statuesque and dressed in a tailored navy suit. Parker, the man greeted standing to extend a handshake. "I'm James Caldwell, a senior board member at Parker Grant. This is Donna Morrison, our general counsel." Michelle felt her pulse spike. The upper echelon of Adrian's company was here face to face. Donna offered a measured smile. "Thank you for meeting us. We're aware of the situation with Adrian, at least partially. We wanted to see if we could come to an arrangement that avoids further public scandal." Michelle's throat went dry. She sipped her water, trying to maintain composure. "What do you propose?" James leaned forward, tenting his fingers. "We need to protect the company's reputation. Adrian Parker has been a strong driver of growth, but we're concerned about his recent personal conduct. The board is preparing a strategy to remove him if he doesn't comply with our demands. Demands that include ceasing any inappropriate use of company funds. We've done some digging ourselves and found enough red flags to warrant an internal audit. But we'd like your cooperation." "Cooperation?" Michelle asked, trying to mask her skepticism. Donna nodded. "We'd like you to share any documents or evidence you have. In exchange, we'll ensure you receive a fair settlement from Adrian. The board can exert pressure on him to finalize the divorce terms advantageously for you. Additionally, we can offer you financial protection, an escrow account in your name, while the dust settles." It was an unexpected lifeline, one that felt almost too good to be true. "Why are you willing to help me?" Michelle asked, voice wary. James's expression softened. "Mrs. Parker, you're carrying Adrian's child. Any scandal that drags you through the mud will reflect badly on Parker Grant. Also, believe it or not, Some of us still hold on to a sense of decency. We don't want to see you destroyed by Adrian's irresponsibility." Michelle mulled it over her mind, darting between possible traps. She couldn't deny that an alliance with the board might protect her in ways she couldn't manage alone. If Parker Grant turned on Adrian, he'd lose a powerful pillar of support. "All right," she finally said. "I'm willing to cooperate. But I want to make sure I come out of this with the means to support my baby. I also want to ensure that Adrian is held accountable for his actions." Donna slid a business card across the table. "Understood. Contact me directly with the documents. We'll handle the rest. Of course, we'd appreciate your discretion." The meeting concluded with polite nods. Michelle felt a strange sense of relief, but also fear. She was stepping deeper into a corporate chess game. One wrong move, and she could lose everything. A week passed, and Michelle complied with the board's request. She forwarded sanitized versions of Charles's documentation to Donna Morrison. Parker Grant's internal audit team got to work immediately, quietly verifying the details. Charles, still in hiding, confirmed that he would speak to them if necessary, but only under legal protection. In the meantime, Adrian made one last, desperate move. He showed up at Kelly's apartment, unannounced. Michelle was napping when she heard frantic knocking on the door. She opened it to find her estranged husband, looking disheveled and furious. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, protective instincts flaring. He barged in, ignoring her question. "So this is how it's going to be." He waved some folded papers in her face. "I got wind of your meeting with the board. You're siding with them." She stepped back, trembling but resolute. "I'm siding with what's right," she said, her voice nearly breaking. "You cheated on me, Adrian. You took money from the company. You left me pregnant with nowhere to go." He flung the papers onto the coffee table. They were copies of the internal audit's preliminary findings. "You think you're so righteous. You want to tear me down. You don't realize that if Parker Grant goes under, you'll be left with nothing. The board will wash their hands of you." Michelle's eyes welled with tears, but she refused to back down. "They've given me their word," she said, voice unsteady. "They'll protect me and my child, something you failed to do." Adrian stared at her belly bitterness, twisting his features. "You still think I'm the villain here?" he asked, hands shaking. "I wanted a different life, Michelle. But you forced me into this." A wave of anger surged in her. "Stop blaming me for your choices," she shouted. "I never forced you to have an affair. I never forced you to embezzle funds. You did that. You ruined our family." In that moment, he looked at her, with a flash of something akin to regret. But it disappeared as soon as it appeared. Without another word, he stormed out. Kelly came rushing out of her bedroom, alarmed. Michelle, trembling, sank onto the couch. "He's desperate now," she whispered. "Who knows what he'll do?" 2 days later, the board convened a secret session. They invited both Michelle and Adrian. Donna Morrison had orchestrated it carefully. It took place in a private conference suite at the Ritz-Carlton, St. Louis, a neutral, discreet location. The suite boasted soundproof walls and heavy doors that guaranteed privacy. Michelle arrived with Lisa Green, and to her surprise found the entire Parker Grant board present: James Caldwell, a few other directors, and an external forensic accountant. Adrian was already there, accompanied by a high-powered attorney, and his mistress, the same brunette from the scandalous photos, seated quietly in the back, eyes scanning the room nervously. Michelle felt a pang of envy at the woman's perfect poise, but she reminded herself this was about the baby, not jealousy. James Caldwell spoke first. We're here to discuss serious allegations. Our audit indicates that you, Mr. Parker, misappropriated company funds for personal use. Additionally, your actions have placed the firm's stability at risk. Our investors and clients could suffer irreparable harm if this becomes public. We demand accountability. Adrian's attorney sprang to his feet, disclaimers at the ready, but Adrian waved him down. He looked exhausted, older than his 36 years. "I'll pay back what I took," he said, voice lacking conviction. "We can settle this internally. There's no need for legal charges." His eyes flickered to Michelle, a mix of anger and pleading. "Let's just handle this quietly." Donna Morrison glanced at Michelle, then said, "Before we decide on how to proceed, there's the matter of your marital dispute, Mr. Parker. Michelle has evidence of your wrongdoing. The board has reviewed it. Our recommendation is for you to finalize a divorce settlement that adequately provides for your child. Immediately." Adrian's jaw clenched. He stole another glance at his mistress, who looked distinctly uneasy. "Fine," he spat. How much Michelle bristled at his callous tone. She hadn't come here to haggle like it was a flea market. Lisa Green calmly slid a settlement proposal across the table. Adrian's attorney scanned it, eyes widening. Then Adrian snatched the document from him, quickly flipping through the pages. "This is absurd," Adrian growled. "She gets the Lake House spousal support for years. Joint custody with a guaranteed monthly stipend." Michelle steadied herself. "It's for the baby's future," she replied. "You have more than enough, Adrian. Don't pretend you can't afford it." A tense silence hung in the air. James Caldwell cleared his throat. "Mr. Parker, if you refuse, we'll proceed with legal charges. You'll likely lose everything anyway, including your ability to hold any future executive position. We can't risk the reputation of Parker Grant by allowing your misconduct to continue." Adrian glared at each board member in turn, then at Michelle. Finally, he slumped in his seat. "All right," he muttered, signing the document with a flourish of anger. "You win." A surge of relief coursed through Michelle. Yet strangely, part of her felt hollow. This was the father of her child, reduced to a cornered man forced to sign away his marriage. Could there have been a time when they might have saved their love? She pushed the thought away. That time, if it ever existed, had long passed. Adrian's attorney gathered the papers looking like a man who'd just lost a high-stakes poker game. James Caldwell nodded gravely, signifying the meeting's end. The board swiftly exited, leaving Adrian, his mistress, Michelle, and their respective attorneys. Michelle turned to leave, but Adrian unexpectedly grabbed her arm, gently this time. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, voice raw. "Just know I'm sorry." His eyes flicked to her belly, then darted away. She swallowed hard. There was nothing left to say. In the days that followed, an official announcement declared Adrian Parker would be stepping down from Parker Grant Holdings to pursue personal ventures. No public mention was made of his indiscretions, and the board quietly reassured major investors that the company remained secure. In exchange for Michelle's silence, she received a substantial settlement and sole ownership of the lake house, a peaceful retreat she'd once fallen in love with during a romantic weekend with Adrian. It felt both ironic and bittersweet to now claim it as part of her fresh start. Michelle moved into the lake house about an hour's drive from St. Louis, nestled near shimmering waters and tall pines. The moment she stepped inside, she felt a wave of memories, some happy, some tragic, wash over her. She cried, allowed herself a final grief for the marriage she had lost, and then set to work making the place her own. Kelly helped decorate the nursery, choosing pastel tones and gentle themes. Michelle enrolled in a local prenatal class, forging new friendships with expectant mothers who had no clue about her tumultuous past. She kept in touch with Charles Reynolds, who informed her that the board had offered him a quiet severance package. He was moving to Denver for a new start. "Thank you for believing me," he told Michelle in their final conversation. "I hope you find peace now." One crisp autumn afternoon, Michelle stood on the lake house's deck, wrapped in a sweater cradling her growing belly. The wind rustled the leaves, painting the water in shades of gold and crimson. In the distance, she noticed a figure approaching. Her heart skipped. It was Adrian. He must have followed her address from the divorce papers. She couldn't pretend she was happy to see him, but she didn't feel the same fury she once had. He stopped a few steps away, hands in his coat pockets. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey," she replied, trying to steady her nerves. He looked thinner, wearier. "I won't stay long," Adrian added. I wanted to see if you're okay." She pressed a protective hand over her belly. "I'm managing." After a moment, she asked, "How's your, new life?" He shrugged, forcing a hollow laugh. "Not as glamorous as you might think. The board froze me out of everything. My relationship didn't last. Turns out she was in it for the money." Silence stretched between them. Finally, he glanced at the lake eyes, distant. "Michelle, if you ever need anything, for the baby, I'll be here." In that moment, she saw a glimmer of the old Adrian, the one she fell in love with at the snack table years ago. But the pain he'd caused her was too deep to brush aside. "Thank you," she said, mustering the barest civility. "But let's keep communication to what's necessary for our child." He nodded, understanding. "I'm sorry," he murmured again, then turned and walked away. Michelle watched him leave, tears stinging her eyes. Tears of finality, acceptance, and the faintest hope for a better future. Months later, Michelle gave birth to a baby boy, Ethan Harris Parker, in a small but welcoming local hospital. Kelly was with her in the delivery room, holding her hand as she labored. The moment Ethan let out his first wail, Michelle experienced an overwhelming flood of love she never imagined possible. She had survived betrayal, heartbreak, and corporate deception to arrive at this sacred moment of life. Adrian visited a week after Ethan's birth, bringing flowers and a hand-knitted baby blanket, likely from a store, but she appreciated the gesture anyway. He looked awkward, unsure how to hold the baby. Michelle guided his arms and he gently cradled Ethan, his eyes brimming with emotions he struggled to express. For a split second, Michelle saw regret flash across his features again. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan became Michelle's entire world. She established a home office, leveraging her marketing expertise to start her own consulting firm, catering to small businesses and non-profits. Word spread quickly about her integrity and passion, and soon she was taking calls from clients in Chicago, Atlanta, even overseas. She was determined to raise Ethan with a balance of financial stability and moral grounding, the very values she believed in, far from the illusions of wealth that had once ensnared her and Adrian. Adrian wrote monthly checks for child support, never missing a payment. So hot. He remained at arm's length, visiting Ethan on scheduled weekends, playing the role of a well-meaning but distant father. Michelle recognized that while Ethan deserved to know his father, she had to protect them both from the emotional volatility Adrian still harbored. Over time, Adrian's visits became more regular, and though Michelle never fully let her guard down, she appreciated that he seemed to genuinely care about their son. Ethan's first birthday arrived on a sunny spring afternoon. Michelle hosted a small gathering at the lake house, inviting friends like Kelly, a few neighbors, and some of her new mum friends from the prenatal classes. A modest balloon arch framed the porch, and a homemade cake awaited the birthday boy's messy delight. To Michelle's surprise, Adrian showed up alone, his hands filled with wrapped presents. He offered a stiff smile and a nod, staying mainly on the periphery of the festivities. When it came time for Ethan to attempt his first taste of cake, Adrian joined Michelle by their son's high chair, snapping pictures with his phone like any proud father. For a moment, the three of them formed a fragile tableau: a mother, a father, and a laughing, frosting-smeared toddler, caught in an unspoken hope that maybe, just maybe, they could navigate a future where heartbreak no longer defined them. After the guests left, and Kelly had helped clean up, Adrian lingered. He strolled out to the deck where Michelle was taking a final look at the leftover decorations. The water gleamed under the setting sun, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange. "This place is beautiful," Adrian remarked, his voice subdued. "I can see why you love it here." She nodded, arms folded. "It's peaceful. Ethan can grow up away from all that chaos." He sighed. "I understand. I'm glad you're both doing well." In the silence that followed, Michelle realized she felt no anger now, just a faint ache for what could have been. Still, the decision had been made, and she had chosen her dignity and Ethan's well-being over illusions of a fairy tale marriage. "We're all trying to heal in our own ways," she said at last. Adrian gently placed a hand on her shoulder, just a momentary, tentative connection. "Thank you for letting me be a part of his life," he said, voice tight with genuine emotion. Then he left his footsteps, softly fading as he walked away. Years passed, but the lessons never faded. Michelle Parker, once known only as the wife of Adrian Parker, had redefined her identity. No longer tethered to the illusions of wealth or the trauma of betrayal, she stood as a beacon of quiet strength, a mother, a businesswoman, and a survivor of one of the most difficult periods in her life. Her consulting firm, Parker & Hart Strategies, had grown well beyond her initial expectations. She now employed a small team of passionate professionals who shared her mission to help non-profits and small businesses tell authentic stories and reach real people. Her clientele stretched across the country, and Michelle found joy not in boardrooms or gala halls, but in the everyday wins, helping a women's shelter double its donations, guiding a local cafe to build an online presence, mentoring interns who reminded her of herself a decade ago. But her greatest joy remained her son, Ethan. Ethan was now a bright, curious toddler, with Adrian's piercing eyes, but Michelle's quiet strength. He loved puzzles, adored animals, and had an odd habit of falling asleep during car rides, no matter the distance. Michelle took him everywhere from weekend markets to beachside road trips. Every time he giggled or wrapped his little arms around her neck, she felt a kind of love that eclipsed anything she'd known before. It was not rooted in promises or wealth, it was pure, unconditional. Adrian, for his part, had become a subdued figure in their lives. Their co-parenting arrangement, while not warm, was functional. He never missed a scheduled visit and kept his financial commitments without question. The scandal had forced him into exile from the business world, but Michelle suspected that deep down, he understood the gravity of what he'd lost, not just a career, but the chance at a true partnership, a real family. Still, she bore him no hatred anymore. Time had dulled the blade of her wounds. What remained was a scar, a reminder but not a prison. One afternoon, as she rocked Ethan to sleep in the nursery, they'd painted soft green. Michelle thought about how different life looked from what she once envisioned. She used to dream of limousines and gala nights, designer shoes and luxury travel. Now she craved slow mornings, the smell of pancakes on the stove, the soft sound of Ethan breathing on her shoulder, and she had built it all herself. Kelly remained her closest confidant, a sister in every way, except by blood. The two often laughed about the early days when Michelle was sleeping in her car, uncertain if she would even survive the heartbreak. Kelly had moved in with her boyfriend, now fiancé, and the two couples often met for dinners. Kelly's unwavering support had been a lifeline, and Michelle knew that she would never forget the hand that reached for her when she was at her lowest. Occasionally, Michelle would receive a letter from Charles Reynolds, now living a quiet life in Colorado. He always asked about Ethan, always signed off with encouragement and praise. "You chose integrity over convenience," he once wrote. That's rare. That's powerful. On the 3rd anniversary of Ethan's birth, Michelle stood by the lake just after sunrise. The wind kissed her face and the sun filtered through the trees, casting long golden streaks over the water. She watched Ethan play with a stick near the shore, giggling at the ducks paddling past. In that tranquil moment, she realized something simple but profound. She had made it. Not just survived, but grown, rebuilt, flourished. Her life was not defined by the man who once broke her heart, nor by the house she had fled, or the scandals that briefly gripped her world. Her life was her own now, every moment of laughter, every small victory, every lesson hard won. And more than anything, it was defined by the love between a mother and her child. Later that evening, as she tucked Ethan into bed, he looked up at her with sleepy eyes and whispered, "You're my favorite person." Tears welled in Michelle's eyes, and she kissed his forehead. "And you, my little one, are my entire world." She turned off the lights and stepped into the hallway, her heart full. In the silence of the house, she opened her laptop to respond to a client's email. But before she typed a single word, she looked out the window toward the lake and whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning," because endings, Michelle had learned, are not final. Sometimes they are the doorway to a life more beautiful than you ever imagined. Thank you for joining me on Michelle Parker's journey from a heartbroken wife sleeping in her car to a resilient mother forging a better life for her child. Her story reminds us that no amount of wealth can replace genuine love, integrity, and inner strength. Sometimes life hands us betrayals that shatter our dreams, but as Michelle discovered, every heartbreak can open a door to a stronger, more honest future. If you found this story inspiring, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need hope in tough times. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Your support helps us continue bringing you these powerful real-life drama stories. Thank you for watching, and remember, when one door closes, another door opens to new possibilities. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and see you in the next video.